started this broadcast here again, here on Market Zero. Um, we appear to be coming to you live. Oops, we got an echo. Anyway, sorry about that.
Live broadcast?
Live broadcast, as I mean, the other ones were also live, but I was just saying that to buy some time so I could check the audio.
Where's Jim Sainsbury?
Um, we're not gonna bring that up.
Okay.
Because, I mean, friend of the guys, he hasn't contributed anything, so we're not going to call him friend of the channel. Kody Smith here, friend of the channel, joining us yet again in another video. Kody, still, we're sitting here consuming some beverages. Adult beverages is a pretty good term for it, a common term. Um, I've been drinking.
Just listen to this, man. Okay.
Go ahead. Ooh, Kody, that's. Oh my God, there's no better sound than that. Why don't you go ahead and tell the people what that was?
That was an ice cold Mexican beer.
Ooh, beer.
Kody original.
The Kody. Is that the? Finish your sentiment.
Go on.
I was gonna
No,
ask.
you go on.
I just wanted to ask you: is that the silver and red or the silver and blue?
Silver and red, man.
That's the
original, the regular, man.
That's the way to do it, my friend.
The silver and blue is the Kody Light.
That's the Kody Light, which.
Yes, that's less alcohol,
Yes.
less calories, all that good stuff.
Yes, and what do we look like? Some kind of health nerds?
Yeah, what do we look like? Skinny?
Are you kidding me?
And to bring that up too, Dan, it was funny the other day you sent me that picture of us from a couple of years ago.
Oh man.
Odds are one of us at least does not remember it, but it was fun to go back and see how skinny we were.
Yes, the only thing I remember was that it was at a birthday party of a friend of both of ours.
Yes, that was our buddy Colin's 22nd birthday party.
Yes, I remember that.
And I remember because he was drunk off his ass coming upstairs to his own house.
To his own house, ladies and gentlemen.
Because I surprised him, and when, I scared him, obviously, because he was shook, but when I saw his eyes, they were looking two different directions.
My goodness.
So I knew he was completely gone.
Yes. And what a time that was. That was my senior year of college, Kody. Go ahead and your junior year. Funny thing also about my senior year and your junior year, if you want to go ahead and talk about this, you played a part in orchestrating a particular event taking place at the university, small university, not a lot of people, not a lot of students. Student body was small. The school managed to get a professional wrestling promotion to put on a show.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and dive a little bit more into that.
So the school organized a quote-unquote professional wrestling. I hate to say that because it was actually really fun, but that was definitely the low-budget, bottom-of-the-barrel kind of promotion you get.
I'll tell you what, though, just to butt in, Kody, I tell you what, I told you I was going to let you take over, but real quick, there was a hot crowd for that show, was there not?
And like I said, it was fun.
We filled up the bleachers because, I mean, like I said, small college, not a lot going on. We filled up the bleachers for that show. It was in the main gym where our basketball team played, right? Filled the bleachers. Go ahead and finish.
And that's what I really dislike about, the stigma against professional wrestling. Because even though it was a small university or whatever, still, there's a small amount of people at that university, but we still filled the bleachers, everybody was having a good time.
Oh, yeah. And
this thing, oh, it's so fake, it's stupid, why do you watch that? It's entertaining, man.
Yes,
you can't have fun watching wrestling. I don't know what's wrong with you then.
People talk about it's redneck soap opera or whatever. And granted, we made it. The college might have been in the middle of nowhere. I'll give you that. But it's a liberal arts college,
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they weren't very close. They were. I mean, I think the best way to put it was they were open-minded. So like, the stigma or the stereotype of the pro wrestling fan is just the redneck who just wants to see that kind of stuff. But it was a liberal arts college, and they filled the bleachers for a pro wrestling show, which and it's not like one of those hot. It's not a high budget, not a high class. I hate to say high class, but it wasn't a high budget wrestling show. It was, like you said, the wrestlers themselves. Because we got there early, I was watching. The wrestlers themselves were setting up the ring, setting everything up, setting up the tables, doing everything. Um, Grassroots is probably the best way to put it. That's probably
Yep.
the best way that I would like to put it, at least.
Yep.
They conducted it themselves. They did it. Um, they put it on their own with, I mean, it was the university hosted it. Um, but they kind of ran it on their own. And if you want to
Absolutely. And
go ahead and bounce off of that.
yeah, and so I remember I was a part of my advanced public relations course when that was going on, and our main thing was to try to gain esteem for the school's like online streaming broadcasting service that was known as Spartan Stream that took over for the school's radio station. So that day, I was actually in charge of the university's Snapchat, not necessarily the class's Snapchat, the whole entire Manchester University Snapchat.
Right, and
So
what were your responsibilities while doing that?
basically, it was just to promote that event, to show everybody, hey, we've got this going on tonight. Let's try to pack the gym, and
And
they said, go ahead and take over, do whatever you want.
what did you do to promote it?
What I did was I would ask students that I knew at first. At first, I wanted to start with people that I knew. I wanted to talk to people about their favorite wrestling memories. I wanted to talk to people about why they were excited for this event at Manchester University, and then go from there. So obviously Dan was one of my guests,
Absolutely.
and then so was Alex Korn, the other half of Market Zero.
Mark Zero here on YouTube, on the YouTube.com.
Yeah, and Alex, his favorite wrestling memory was about Dan at the previous year's
Okay, that's
WrestleMania.
enough of that. Moving on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna say that. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just want to talk to people about like their favorite wrestling memories and get people like involved in that. And then it was during the show itself, take videos, take pictures, all that good stuff of the events. And I feel like the wrestling mark in me, and I hate to call myself a mark, but we're both marks. We are.
Sure.
Um, it took over. I
Oh
was
yeah.
trying to appeal to the people that know what professional wrestling is, obviously, but I wanted to appeal like to the very, very casual that knows what it is, but they don't necessarily watch. I was
Yeah.
trying to appeal to that, and then by the end of the night, I was appealing to the wrestling fan. Because I
Yep.
remember at one point there was a women's match that ended in a disqualification, I believe.
Hmm.
And so I was like, unfortunately, the title can't change hands in a disqualification.
Which isn't common knowledge
And I
for
posted it,
for wrestling.
which
Which
is
isn't
common
common.
knowledge amongst wrestling fans. Yeah. And then I posted it, and then I started thinking, I was like, dude, 95% of people that are going to view this have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they don't know what disqualification in a pro wrestling match is.
Yeah.
They understand the idea
So,
of disqualification, but not necessarily when it pertains to a pro wrestling match.
but other than that, man, it was so fun. Dan and I were yelling at the top of our lungs. We had a couple other people show up with like title belts and all that, and yeah, it was a good time, man. I really enjoyed it. And sometimes being a wrestling fan, you definitely feel like the outcast. And that night, I felt like the outcast that was on top.
Oh yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, because I mean, like we said, small liberal arts school. If you know one thing, you're kind of in. And not a lot of people knew the thing of pro wrestling. I mean, not to say that Kody and I are, we're not in the business. We don't.
Geniuses.
Right. But we kind of understand. We're smart to the business, though, in a sense.
Yes,
Um,
in a sense, we were very smart. That's the
yes.
best way to put it.
Right. To understand like why things happen, or like psychology is kind of a term that's tossed around. Like the whole disqualification thing and how titles can't change hands. We could sit there and understand everything that was going on, but not everybody else necessarily could. Especially at a liberal arts school, where that kind of thing oftentimes is looked down upon. Um, if you've got any thoughts on that in particular, I really didn't want to dwell on that too much, but it was just kind of an observation.
Yeah. No, yeah, you just keep on moving on.
Sorry, I'm naming my horse as part of a mission. Give me a
I
hint.
named mine Chris Benoit.
I'm naming my Mr. Kitty. Mr. Kitty.
It's a bad Mr. Kitty.
Um, but yeah, the cool thing about that show too, because I remember you were talking earlier about, you were interviewing people about their favorite wrestling memories. You actually got to talk to a few of the wrestlers themselves. If you want to touch on that, because I mean, I have a few memories of the wrestlers. If you can recall anything, because I mean that was a couple of years ago, so it's hard to.
Yeah,
And if you remember, if you forget something, I may be able to fill you in, or if I forget something, you could be able to fill in the gaps for me. So if you want to go ahead and kind of touch on those things.
so there were two in particular that I really remember. The other ones, there was a tag team that
Yep.
really reminded me of if uh, there are doctors or listeners that in the product now that remind me of heavy machinery in the WWE right now. They're
Yep.
bigger guys. They're really entertaining. I got to talk to them a little bit. I didn't really get to talk to them about their memories or anything like that, or like their favorite wrestling moment. I talked to them about like why they decided to get into the business and like superstars that obviously influenced them. And usually the consensus amongst all of them was like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels,
Mhm.
all that. But anyways, the two in particular, I remember one of them was a part of a tag team. I actually with I think it was a part of a tag team that I was actually thinking about right now with one of the bigger guys. But anyways, that's beside the point. But he was talking about his favorite memory was the Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12,
Mhm.
and he was like trying to stay in character during the interview too. So it was really cool. And he was like, the boyhood dream, it came true. And then he said something after that like, and he will never be able to compare to me or something like that. Like I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But then another one, the guy was in the quote unquote main event of the night,
Yep.
the last match, and man, he reminded me so much of current superstar Aiden English.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's like throwback, yeah, like vaudevillain style, the hard hitting manly man kind of. But he was still a goofy bastard, man, and he's a really cool guy. We talked to him afterwards. And I just remember talking to him about like what has really influenced him, and actually that was one of the guys that he brought up. He was like, right now, Aiden English is a huge influence, and it was actually really cool to hear from a guy talking about someone currently, because all
Yeah.
you ever hear of is people talking about people from the past that could still be doing it, but you never hear of somebody saying, you know. So I'm just trying to think of something like off the top of my head. So say someone started wrestling in 2013.
Mhm.
And then you had a guy such as Alberto Del Rio really come through with things in the WWE in 2011. Obviously, he was big in Mexico, all that stuff beforehand, but really started hitting it big in the WWE as obviously the Alberto Del Rio character. So let's just say that. And then you have a guy that's trying to model it after him.
Mhm.
And Del Rio was still hot and continuing rising through the ranks in 2013 in the WWE. That's what I kind of compare it to right now. When I was talking to that guy, it was really cool to hear him saying, "This guy right now is a huge influence on me, and I'm trying to study him." Whereas
Right.
you usually hear people say, "Okay, I want to go back and be Bret Hart. I want to go back and be Hulk Hogan, stuff like that."
All right.
It's really cool to hear somebody say, "I want to be like someone that's currently in the product right now." And obviously, like you said, that was 2 years ago, and Aiden English has kind of been forgotten at this point. But
Right.
man, it was really cool to hear something like that. And yeah, that guy was awesome too. My girlfriend Cassie got a picture with him and all that. And he was telling us how he's been in the ring with like X-Pac, Kevin
Mhm.
Nash, all of them. And I was like, man, this guy is at a show in North Manchester, Indiana right now.
Population of
Front of 5
4,000. Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in front of like 100 students.
Mhm.
And he's been in the ring with like X-Pac and all that stuff. It's like, not trying to, I'm nowhere near trying to bash on Manchester because I love that place. Made fond memories, met like the best of friends, but what the hell is that guy doing here? Like if you've been in those kind of matchups and those in front of that kind of environment, why are you here?
Right. And I'm gonna go ahead and
And
challenge you on
at
that,
the end of the day,
real
at the
quick.
end of the day, it's
Real
like the
quick.
business.
real. Oh, good. Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off for that. I didn't know you
I
could.
said at the end of the day, it's the love for the business.
Absolutely,
That's
which
what it's
is,
all about.
I mean, again, not being part of the business, never being affiliated with the pro wrestling or sports entertainment industry. But I personally, as a fan, can respect somebody um, if that's their motive is love for the business, because playing Division three football, I kind of relate. Anyway, I just wanted to challenge you real quick. You're talking about only packing 100 people into that gym. I would challenge that number any day of the week as more than 100. Anyway, though, what was really cool also about that show, I remember watching. There was a wrestler. I'm so sorry. Beer is getting the but upper hand rather. Um, that show actually featured Gregory Iron, the handicap hero, the pro wrestler with
Yeah.
with cerebral palsy, who's been like wrestled for Chikara and a bunch of other promotions, which is at the time I didn't really realize what was going on. Until it wasn't until after the fact that I realized what happened.
Who this guy is.
Right, right. Um, it was just really cool to see that and again, being at a liberal arts school, people were constantly talking about things like social justice, which we're not going to go into right now, obviously. Um, but to see that I think it was really cool to see in a small town of, I mean, the town itself, the population was like 4,000, but let alone at like a small school, small university with an enrollment of like 1,500 at the most. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Thank you. But yeah, and also a fun fact about the Gregory Iron guy, man. Wrestler with cerebral palsy. He came out at the end of the show. He fucking hit it. Or sorry, freaking hit a stunner.
Yeah, they had the stoner party. Yeah,
And the crowd popped.
everyone knew what that was. Like, even if
Yeah,
everybody wasn't a
that's the
wrestling
thing.
fan,
And we'll get into that here in a little bit.
yes, even if everybody wasn't a wrestling fan, they knew what the stunner was. They could identify
Yes.
it for whatever reason. They knew
Yep.
what happened when the stunner came out. They knew what happened.
Yep. Exactly. And you're laughing at that, but like, it's true, man. Like,
It
it's
is,
so
yeah,
true.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's a. I hate to use the word meme, but it's like a pop culture, American pop culture.
Well, that's the thing too. Stone Cold was pop culture.
Yes, he was.
Oh my gosh, at one point Stone Cold Steve Austin was pop culture.
Yes, absolutely.
Nothing else mattered other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. But anyways, a fun fact about the Gregory Iron, the gentleman with cerebral palsy, really good friends with Johnny Gargano.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was like in his wedding, or vice versa.
Yeah,
Gargano was in his wedding.
no,
Um,
yeah, he was in Gargano's wedding,
yeah, there
and
you go.
recently it was Gregory's birthday, and Gargano like wished him happy birthday and
Give him a
everything.
shout out. Yeah.
And right there, it really dawned on me because I knew it like maybe a few months afterwards. I was like, holy crap, this dude was like a big deal.
Yeah.
But then that really hit home. I was like, man, we literally saw this guy.
In
We
the
met him in
flesh.
his
In the flesh. Yeah.
and he's like best friends with Johnny Gargano
Who is? Yeah.
for a free show, completely free show, no
Well,
sales. But
I mean, for that, I mean, paying for tuition. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, well, yeah, that's true. It's a good
Beyond
point.
that. Beyond that. Beyond that.
Same, but different, but still same.
Beyond. Yeah. They keep saying beyond that, but regardless, you were talking about
Oh
us.
man, yeah, that was cool.
You were talking about Steve Austin wanting to get into other things. Was there anything in particular you wanted to kind of touch on?
Oh, I'm sorry. Touch on like what?
Because we were talking about the stunner party at the end of the show. We were talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin being a pop culture icon. What he called himself a global icon and a national treasure.
He was, man. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
As much, and I know Stone Cold Steve Austin's your all-time favorite.
hmm
Um,
right.
and and as far and that my all-time favorite is Chris Jericho.
Yep.
But in terms of and I think we definitely have our views on it in terms of why,
Right.
and I think we can agree on it because obviously we have an understanding of the wrestling product.
Right.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, completely understand because that guy saved the WWE.
Yep.
If it wasn't for him, The Rock might have saved it, but definitely nowhere near as chance or not as big a chance as Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right, and we could split hairs upon that, but I mean, in general, it's kind of the consensus among even casual fans. I think would agree with that.
Yeah, and also The Rock, would he have been as big without Stone Cold Steve
Right,
Austin without?
without being able to feud with someone at that high a caliber.
It's like without Stone Cold Steve Austin, would The Rock have gotten that big? And the same could probably have been said to an extent. Without The Rock, could Stone Cold have really been as big? But before that, Stone Cold really started blowing up, so he probably still would have been. Because in '98, before The Rock really took off, Stone Cold was bigger than what the
Jesus.
Beatles used to say. Yeah, but Beatles used to say they were bigger than Jesus. Stone Cold Steve Austin at one point was probably bigger than Jesus.
Oh yeah. I mean, metaphorically.
Bigger than at that point in sports, bigger than like Jerry Rice, bigger than
Yeah, whoever was
Jim
popular
Tatum.
when we were 3 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah, bigger than Michael Jordan, dude. And I seriously would, I say that with full confidence. He was bigger than Michael
Oh, I'm
Jordan.
sure. Because yeah,
It's insane how big the wrestling product was in the late '90s.
yeah. Which I mean, and we've talked about this before. How again, we've never been affiliated, but I just kind of how weird even the idea is, because like it could appeal. Wrestling can appeal to sports fans, can appeal to the casual kind of common audience, but then it has like its own fandom, its own following of its own, of people who may not even like sports or like traditional TV shows.
Yep.
So it's like to everybody, I guess, which is kind of I don't want to use the word weird, but like kind of an anomaly, because you watch and you go into it being smart to the idea that it's not um, it's understood between the people competing what's going to happen, what's going to go down at
Oh
the
yeah.
end. Um, but you're still looking at it with keeping in the back of your mind the idea of I don't know what's going to happen, and
Yep.
it if it's convincing, it can go either way. Um, sorry, I'm just looking at my horse named Mr. Kiddy, and it keeps making me laugh. um, I mean, yeah, like we were saying, obviously it's everybody's kind of in on it at this point in time. Um, sorry, I'm trying to read the directions on my. Everybody's in on it.
Getting mauled by a bear.
Everybody's in on it at this point in time. Um, but still, the idea, like suspension of disbelief is what everybody always talks about. And you watch it, you watch it, and the idea is expecting to watch a struggle. It's supposed to look like they're struggling. It's supposed to look like they're actually fighting.
Yep.
Um, which if you watch UFC or any kind of mixed martial arts, um, I mean, you could tell obvious differences, but it's supposed to resemble it. I shouldn't say it should look like it. It should resemble it.
Yep.
Um, which, I mean, in this day and age, a lot of people complain about it with the different. Uh, Again, I hate to use insider terms, but like spots is what everybody refers to it. Um,
Yeah.
yes, weird
It,
or different
and
spots, things like
nowadays
that.
the product has evolved, which I completely understand.
Yeah,
We got to evolve to what the audience wants, and right now, what the audience wants is what we classify as the flippy shit and the mark stuff
yeah,
and
the spotty stuff.
yeah, the spot monkeys, as Matt Hardy would love to say.
LOL.
But um, one match in particular that I will forever at this point look back on very fondly that not many people did, that flies very much under the radar, was last year at the takeover, the NXT takeover in Philadelphia. And I might be a little biased because I had a match with the Velveteen Dream,
Oh yeah.
and man, it was sloppy.
Yeah.
Like, did not look good. Nothing. It was sloppy. I will be the first one to admit it. But sometimes to tell a story like that, the story that was trying to be told in that was that Cassius Ohno was like this veteran that was just trying to shut up this young kid. And Cassius Ohno's, his initials KO, so he's the knockout artist. He was saying, "I'm gonna knock this guy out." That's literally all it was.
Right.
So the entire time, it literally just looked like a sloppy, out, backyard fight.
Right.
I loved it. I thought all of it was perfect. I thought it was the best match ever. And then I remember seeing and I know you and I go back and forth on this because we both have a disdain for it, but I remember seeing Dave Meltzer's rating for it, and it was like 2 stars.
Yeah.
And so many internet people were like, "That match sucked, worst match of the night." And I was sitting there, I was like, I loved it. I thought that
Yep.
was an amazing match. And of course, at that same takeover, we saw Johnny Gargano and Andrade Cien Almas tear the house down. But dude, I seriously thought that was an awesome match. And sometimes those kind of matches get lost. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You don't get those kind of matches that just try to tell a story, try to get a rivalry done in that match, and try to simulate like an actual fight instead of being like a choreographed masterpiece.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, I'm not a Jim Cornette loyalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he does raise a lot of good points. He was like he with I hate to use the word sloppy because when he talks about this kind of matches, he goes, "They're not sloppy. They just look real. They look like an actual fight. They look like a struggle." That's what he's. I mean, he's like, "It looks like a struggle. No real fight is going to show people doing 2 backflips before punching somebody, like things like that."
Yeah,
Which I mean, really, if you were to watch a street fight break out, who's going to do a front flip before throwing an elbow or a punch or
and
something?
actually, and I don't want to interrupt you, but in that kind of situation, sloppy using the word sloppy is not bad
I know what you
because a
mean.
fight's
On
not
one
supposed
hand,
to
yeah,
look good. A
yeah,
fight looks sloppy.
yeah. Or I mean, if you're untrained, yeah, on the one hand, but like these,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is where I agree with him. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, these are professionals. But like again, it's fighting. Like if you watch a UFC fight, not every punch lands, not every submission not every submission works, not every pass while you're in a grapple works. I mean, it's choppy. It looks like crap.
Yep, yep, exactly. And sometimes you're gonna have those matches and Bruce Pritchard talks about that a lot on his podcast, Something to Wrestle, which both of you and I are big fans of.
Mm-hmm.
It is, he talks a lot about he's a big time story first, match second.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're able to put a match together and tell the story and put on a 4.5 star match with it, that's on the performers. That means you've got really good performers that can put on a really good match every single time.
Right.
But sometimes you've got to tell a story first, and right there, that is a match that I'll always look at. That will forever to me be story first, then the match rating at the end of the day second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really briefly again to touch on the whole sloppy issue. I just remember the John Cena and CM Punk matches where like John Cena would go to hit an attitude adjustment on. I mean, it could be anybody, I guess. And he flips them, and the idea is that they're supposed to land on their feet, but they kind of land sloppily, and like they land on like a knee and a foot, and people just get online. Oh, you botched it. You screwed it up. It's like if somebody is holding you on their shoulders and throws you, are you gonna land on both of your feet? No. You're gonna land like you'll probably land first of all on your face or on your back. But if you're able to manage to somehow avoid it, it's not gonna be perfect. You land on both feet and kick them or whatever. Like, don't be ridiculous. Don't take yourself too seriously, I guess. Still with us, Kody?
Yes, I'm peeing.
Okay, that's what I figured. Cody's in the Arthur Morgan with a bear shit here comment. Cody will rejoin us shortly. He's currently in the commode. This video is now at the 30-minute mark. This conversation has gone pretty well. We've covered quite a few topics. This one might be cut off pretty soon once Cody rejoins us. We've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 here. Cody,
and I cannot help but overhear that we've already been on a 30-minute point in this video.
30 minutes, which
Holy cow.
To be quite honest, I feel like we've been going for a lot longer.
Let's leave the bag over there.
Well, one thing that you talked about, or actually you tagged, I'm pretty sure, before this video, and we will get into it, right? I'm taking control, Dan, damn it.
Go ahead.
But no,
please do.
You talked about potentially talking about AEW.
Why don't Cody? Why don't you hold that thought? Actually, while we go ahead and cut this one off, so we don't run too long. People lose interest. I mean, 30 minutes. People might have already gone ahead and lost interest at this point. But that's a whole separate topic. So we're gonna go ahead and end this one, Cody. We're gonna go ahead and start another one. We'll touch on that because it is related, but kind of different. So. We will see you.
Well, one thing actually, Dan.
Real quick, go ahead and sneak it in here.
We talked about earlier on. We were talking about like our favorite wrestlers of all time. We
yes.
didn't really finish the topic. Because I talked about how Stone Cold was your favorite.
Yes.
In terms of, and I was talking about how he was like.
Pardon me.
Made wrestling, basically.
Right.
Other than Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold made wrestling.
Absolutely.
And then the argument for me, I'll keep this very brief. Our argument for me with Chris Jericho, and a lot of people consider him to be the greatest of all time at this point. Is because of the way that guy evolves.
Oh yeah.
And and this is a nice little cliffhanger to go into the AEW topic, but now he is signed I think it's like a 3-year deal with AEW.
Oh really?
And the fact that he is still relevant enough to make a high dollar amount and B still be a top draw.
Oh yeah.
At this point in his career.
20 years after leaving WCW. Please finish. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, absolutely, and you're fine. But the fact that he is able to do that and be a top draw anywhere he goes. If he came back to the WWE, he's a top draw.
Agreed.
That guy can on the flip of a dime, drop of a pen, anything. He will change his character up if you need to.
Right, and that's if need be.
I've never seen a guy be able to go from where he was at one point and then just transfer to something completely different. Like if you took the Chris Jericho that came back in 2007, and then the 2008 Chris Jericho, that was the best in the world at what I do. The slimy, smug, I'm not gonna talk much kind of guy to what he was in 2017 in the WWE, like always talking, always yelling. You just made the list. At that point, I would have told you you're crazy. That guy is so good at just recreating himself over and over and over again. Then he goes to New Japan Pro Wrestling, puts on this weird face paint, becomes literally just a weirdo, but it worked.
Right.
It's amazing what he can do. But anyways, yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, and the thing with him is
I just wanted to get to that point. I've been holding on to that for like 20 minutes now. I wanted to get it out.
Oh no, and I was just kind of go ahead and letting you just kind of rattle it off because I completely agree, and we've talked about this kind of topic before, and I wouldn't let you keep going on if I didn't agree. So, and like you were saying, he's able to evolve, which just means progress. Evolution is progress, and we're gonna go ahead and progress here onto the next video. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this one off. You like how I did that right there? We're gonna go ahead and cut this one off because we're gonna go ahead and kind of switch gears, and we've already been going for 35 minutes, so it's even somewhat of an anomaly if anyone is still here with us. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut this one off, and we're gonna start a new one. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop this broadcast right about